2004 Indian Ocean Tsunami. On the morning of December 26 of 2004, people in Indonesia, Thailand and Sri Lanka were enjoying the holiday season. The day started calm with clear skies and peaceful seas. Far beneath the Indian Ocean, the earth was moving violently. A 9.1 magnitude earthquake ruptured the seafloor near Sumatra, Indonesia. The tectonic shift pushed billions of gallons of water upward, creating massive waves. At first, the ocean retreated strangely, exposing fish and seabed. Curious locals and tourists approached to see, unaware of the danger. Within minutes, a wall of water taller than buildings appeared on the horizon. It crashed into villages, resorts, and cities without warning. Parents clutched their children, families ran, but unfortunately, only a few escaped. Boats, cars, and homes were thrown around like toys by the raging water. Entire neighborhoods in Banda Aceh, Indonesia were swept away. The tsunami reached Thailand, Sri Lanka, India, and even Africa. Rescue teams arrived, but the scale of destruction was beyond imagination. Over 230,000 people lost their lives, and countless more were injured or displaced. Survivors described streets turned into rivers and screams drowned by waves. The 2004 tsunami remains a chilling reminder of nature's unstoppable power. The 1931 China floods. In the spring of 1931, a heavy rains began pouring across central and eastern China. The Yangtze, Yellow, and Huai rivers began to swell beyond their banks. Farmers noticed the water rising higher each day, threatening homes and crops. By June, the rivers had merged into a vast, unstoppable flood. Also, entire villages were submerged overnight and families barely escaped. People climbed rooftops and trees as the water swept through towns. Roads disappeared underwater and boats became the only way to travel. Also, crops were destroyed, leaving millions without food. Starvation spread quickly, adding to the disaster's toll. Disease struck survivors, which cholera and typhoid killed thousands more. Parents begged for help to save their children, but aid was limited. Provinces including Anhui, Jiangsu, and Hebei were devastated. Cities turned into islands, and survivors drifted for days in the floodwaters. The government tried to respond, but the scale of destruction was overwhelming. Estimates suggest up to 4 million people died from drowning, starvation, and disease. The floods destroyed homes, farmland, and infrastructure across a vast region. The 1931 China floods remains the deadliest flood in human history. The 1815 Mount Tambora eruption. In April 1815, on the island of Sumbawa in Indonesia, Mount Tambora began rumbling ominously. Villagers noticed earthquakes and ash falling from the sky for weeks. On April 10 of 1815, the volcano erupted with unimaginable force. Columns of ash shot up to 50 kilometers into the atmosphere. Pyroclastic flows raced down the slopes, incinerating everything in their path. Entire villages were buried under thick layers of ash and lava. People were killed instantly by the heat, falling debris, or suffocation. Crops were buried, livestock killed, and rivers filled with volcanic debris. The eruption caused a volcanic winter, which global temperatures dropped, leading to famine. Europe and North America suffered the year without a summer in 1816. Crops failed, and millions faced starvation due to crop shortages worldwide. Local death tolls on Sumbawa are estimated at 10,000, but worldwide famine killed tens of thousands more. Survivors described sky was dark as night, ash covering everything, and silence broken by screams. The eruption ejected over 160 cubic kilometers of material, one of the largest in recorded history. Today, the eruption is remembered as a catastrophic event that changed both local and global history. The 1900 Galveston Hurricane. In September of 1900, the city of Galveston, Texas, seemed calm and normal. Fishermen noticed dark clouds gathering over the Gulf of Mexico. By September 8, the storm had grown into a powerful hurricane, heading straight for the city. Residents underestimated its strength, thinking it would pass like any other storm. But, unfortunately, this was no ordinary hurricane. Winds reached over 135 miles per hour. A massive storm surge pushed water from the Gulf onto the island. Within hours, Galveston was submerged under 15 feet of water. Homes were swept away, buildings collapsed, and debris filled the streets. People climbed to rooftops, trees, and anything that floated. Entire families were torn apart in the chaos. There was no warning system, no way to prepare for this disaster. Rescue efforts began after the storm passed, but the damage was overwhelming. Estimates suggest around 8,000 people lost their lives, making it the deadliest natural disaster in US history. Hospitals struggled to treat injuries and stop disease outbreaks. Galveston was almost completely destroyed and rebuilding took years. The 1900 Galveston Hurricane remains a chilling reminder of nature's power over unprepared cities. The 2008 Sichuan Earthquake. On May 12 of 2008, a normal spring afternoon in Sichuan, China turned into pure horror. At 2 p.m., the ground shook violently with a magnitude of 7.9. Mountains cracked open, roads twisted, and entire villages collapsed in seconds. Schools filled with children were crushed under concrete as parents rushed helplessly outside. The epicenter was near Wenchuan County, deep in the mountains of Sichuan province. The quake's power was so strong, tremors were felt in Beijing, Shanghai, and even Bangkok. Within minutes, communication lines went dead, cutting millions of people off from the outside world. The official death toll rose to nearly 90,000 lives lost. Also, more than 370,000 people were injured and over 5 million people were left homeless. Rescue workers dug through rubble with bare hands, hoping to hear a child's cry or a survivor's whisper. International aid rushed in, with doctors, soldiers, and volunteers working side by side to save lives. The Sichuan earthquake remains one of the deadliest quakes of modern times. The 1925 Tri-State Tornado. March 18 of 1925 seemed like an ordinary spring day in the Midwest United States. But as the sky darkened, one of the most violent tornadoes in the history was forming. It touched down in Missouri, and what followed was pure terror. The tornado grew to nearly a mile wide, a dark monster ripping across the land. It didn't lift off the ground, it kept going, destroying everything in its path. For over 3.5 hours, it stayed on the ground. The tornado went through 3 states, Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. People tried to outrun it, but the storm was faster than trains and cars. Entire families were lost in moments, with no time to escape. The destruction stretched across 219 miles, the longest tornado track ever recorded. Thousands were left homeless, standing in fields of rubble and dust. When it was finally over, the devastation was unthinkable. Nearly 700 people were killed and over 2,000 injured. It remains the single deadliest tornado in US history. The 2010 Haiti Earthquake. On January 12 of 2010, a 7-magnitude earthquake struck near Port-au-Prince, Haiti. It was early morning, and most people were still asleep in their homes. The ground shook violently, tossing people out of bed and destroying buildings instantly. Concrete homes, schools, hospitals collapsed in seconds. Survivors ran screaming through the dust and debris. Hospitals were destroyed, leaving the injured with nowhere to go. Rescue teams struggled to reach people buried under concrete and wood. Makeshift camps were created, but disease quickly spread among the displaced. Bodies lay in the streets as families desperately searched for missing members. Entire neighborhoods of Port-au-Prince were wiped out in moments. Roads and communication lines were broken, slowing international aid. Estimates suggest over 160,000 people lost their lives, with millions injured or displaced. Aid eventually arrived from around the world, but the damage was beyond immediate repair. The quake left Haiti in chaos, with the country struggling to recover for years. The 1970 Bhola Cyclone. In November 1970, the Bay of Bengal began to churn violently with storm clouds. Villagers in East Pakistan noticed strong winds and heavy rains approaching. By November 13 of 1970, the cyclone had grown into a massive and deadly storm. Entire villages were swept away as the storm strongly reached up to 10 meters. Boats and homes were torn apart by powerful winds and waves. Communications were destroyed. News of a disaster spread slowly. Also, millions of people were left homeless. Rescue efforts were limited, hampered by destroyed infrastructure and floodwaters. Entire communities disappeared from maps, leaving nothing behind but ruins. The storm left lasting damage to agriculture, homes, and livelihoods. Official estimates report up to 500,000 people lost their lives, making it one of the deadliest tropical cyclones in history. The 1970 Bhola Cyclone remains a haunting reminder of the fury of the sea. The 1923 Great Kanto Earthquake. On September 1st of 1923, at 12 p.m. the ground beneath Japan began to shake violently. The epicenter was near the Kanto region, also affecting Tokyo and Yokohama. Fires broke out instantly when stoves toppled and lamps fell. Streets turned into rivers of flames and smoke, trapping residents. Thousands ran in panic, trying to flee both fire and collapsing buildings. The earthquake destroyed homes, shops, schools, and hospitals in minutes. Port areas like Yokohama were devastated, with ships thrown ashore or sunk. Survivors described streets filled with chaos, flames, and the cries of neighbors. Relief efforts struggled as roads and communication lines were destroyed. The official death toll is estimated at around 140,000 people, with countless injured and homeless. Japan had to rebuild almost completely, reshaping its cities and infrastructure. The Great Kanto Earthquake is remembered as one of the deadliest and most destructive natural disasters in modern history. And that's the end of our journey through history's most powerful disasters. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next story.